these problems are problems that have built up over decades, and there hasn't been a Congress that's been mature enough or a president that's been mature enough to take this head on.
I could end the deficit in 5 minutes. You just pass a law that says that anytime there's a deficit of more than 3% of GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election. Yeah. Now you've got the incentives in the right place, right? So it's capable of being done. And they're trying to use the incentive now that we're going to blow your brains out, America, in terms of your debt worthiness over time, and that's being used as a threat. A more effective threat would be just to say, if you guys can't get it done, we'll get some other guys to get it done.
I watched this clip earlier today and I wanted to share it with you all because a question came up in my head, and it was, why hasn't Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, why hasn't he been contacted by any administration to actually maybe work on this issue, right? Seems quite strange to me. But then again, if you go back and listen to the answer that he gave, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why he never got the call. Anyways, today on Monday was a pretty crazy day in the stock market. We started the day deep red, an hour later, deep green, couple of minutes after that, red again. And now the markets are closed and we actually finished flat to down-ish, which means that the odds that we spoke about in the other video, well, we were on the other side of things. Despite the odds being on our side, I think it was 80% of the time after the S&P 500 drops over 4%, well, the third day, 80% of the time we were green. In our case here, we were the unlucky ones. We were red, although not that much red. So let's talk a little bit more what happens next. Was this the bottom? Yes, no? To be honest, I don't know. Nobody knows if this is the bottom or not, although some stocks are experiencing maybe bottom-like reactions, because you would have assumed that these stocks would have been more red today, but they actually finished green. So let's talk about all of that in this video. If you've been buying or selling stocks, let me know down in the comment section below. If you enjoy this type of videos, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not. We really appreciate that. I really appreciate all the support you've been giving me, well, actually in the last couple of days has been insane, so thank you very much. And if you want to support me even further, do check out the link down in the description and in the pinned comment with the top 10 best stocks to buy now, or go to fool.com/couchinvestor. Thank you very much, and thank you to all the new members of the channel. All right, so first up, a quick overview of what has happened. This is the heat map. So at one point, most of this was green, then most of it was red, and we finished the day where, well, Nvidia is up 3.5%, Apple still down 3.6%, probably because of that China exposure. Amazon is up, Broadcom is up 5.3%, Meta is up, Google is up, Palantir actually up 5.17%. Pre-market, this stock was actually under $70. So, well, huge swing from $67, $68, finished the day at $77.8. Insane price action. Tesla did finish the day down 2.56%. All right, so now talking about the odds that we spoke about in the other video, right? So the S&P 500, after 2 consecutive days of 4.5% declines, what we have seen and what we have said is that one day later, 80% of the time we were positive. Well, turns out, now that Monday is over, turns out that we were not the 80%, we were the 20% of the times where it was red. Now, what happens when the S&P 500 is down 4% for 2 straight days and then down again on Monday? So 3 days of red, but 2 days of deep red and then another day. Well, it turns out that now the odds are really in our favor that on Tuesday we will be green, unless we are going to destroy this statistic here. Because if we look at the other times that this has happened, in 29, in 32, in 33, which not great periods. And then, well, we'll see what happens in 2025. But 100% of the time, the market, well, the S&P was green. 2 days later, 100% of the time, S&P was green. 3 days later, 100% of the time, the S&P was green. Only here after 4 days in 1932 was the market red. So 67% of the time, 4 days later, the S&P was red. And after that, a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 100% of the time we were green. So here I'd say the same thing I said in the other videos. The odds are in our favor, but in this case, well, I cannot tell you that we might be on the other side because, well, there is no other side when it's 100% of the time. Unless we look 4 days ahead, then we might be in the 33%, right? That's definitely a possibility. Now, of course, like I said, the deadline is April 9th. A lot of countries are already in discussion with the United States, and that's not just me saying, that's actually Scott Bessent saying.
Larry, I can tell you that there are 50, 60, maybe almost 70 countries now who have approached us. So it's going to be a busy April, May, maybe into June. And Japan is a very important military ally. They're a very important economic ally. And the U.S. has a lot of history with them. So I would expect that Japan's going to get priority just because they came forward very quickly. But it's going to be very busy. And if President Trump, again, gave himself maximum negotiating leverage, and just when he achieved the maximum leverage, he's willing to start talking.
And if you listen what he's saying, he's talking already about May, about June as well. So if you think that this tariff story is going to go away anytime soon, I don't think so. But I think as we go from week to week, we hear more and more announcements, more and more countries talking with the United States, making deals, etc., the uncertainty levels are going to come down. I mean, if they truly are talking with 50, 60, 70 countries or so, I mean, that's going to take a while. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But of course, China is the big one, right? China is the big name, the big country where the markets right now are still waiting for that one because it's heating up, right? China announced retaliatory tariffs. Donald Trump said we're going to go back and maybe put another 50% on top of the tariffs that we already have. So things are getting wild out there. But the other countries are now coming to the table. We've also heard that Europe might be coming to the table as well, although they can already have, or they will have already, a backup plan just in case. But rest assured, bourbon is off the list of tariffs. So if you're in Europe and you like bourbon, well, congratulations. You can get drunk without getting ripped off. Although maybe after you get drunk, somebody might rip you off. Moving on here to the expected rate cuts. Well, if we look at the month of June, the expected rate cuts are now closer to 98%. So 98% chance that we're getting at least 25 basis points cut in June. I mean, does this surprise you? Because me, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. If we actually look at the 10-year went under 4%, was actually at 3.88%. We finished the day today at 4.2%. So either the market here is signaling that, well, we're actually calling this tariff bluff, or there is something definitely wrong and broken here, and we might see another crash in the next couple of days. Could be. Now, remember, in my eyes, and I think in many people's eyes, the whole plan here was to make sure that rates are coming down so you can refinance your trillions of dollars in debt at lower rates, which could save you hundreds of billions of dollars. Now, of course, if you can manage to do that without breaking the economy, without going into a harsh recession, well, I think that's going to be the ideal scenario. If that's going to happen, I don't know. But interest rates are definitely going to come down this year. Some people are saying, no, the Fed will actually raise rates. No, I don't see any scenario where the Fed will actually raise rates in the next 12 months. Moving on to some specific stocks here. So we're following semis, we're following Chinese stocks, we're following fintech and some other names as well. So funny enough, fintech stocks that we're following: Affirm, Shift4, SoFi, Robinhood, New Holdings, Block, PayPal, and Adyen. All of them were green. Well, Adyen was actually flat, but all the rest here, green. SoFi up 3% at one point. When everything was up, it was up, I think, 10, 11% or so. But fintech today had a pretty good day. China, on the contrary, did not have a good day. So NIO down 2.8%, Baidu down 3.2%, Pinduoduo down 4% and down another 2% after hours, JD down 5%, the KWEB ETF here down 6.2%, Tencent down 7% and Alibaba down 9%. So yeah, I'm still outperforming with Alibaba. Year to date, I'm still up 21% or so, which is less than the 50% that we had a couple of weeks ago. But it does seem like, the Chinese stock market is getting hit a lot. So we'll see. They think they have the chips. The US thinks they have the cards. I have the cards, you have the cards, you have no cards. We'll see. We'll see what type of card game they're playing. Seems like some Uno, to be honest, right? +4, then another +4, right? Your tariffs is always a +4, +4. But apparently those aren't even the rules. You cannot put a +4 card on top of another +4 card. So yeah, reverse Uno. I think that's the play here. Anyways, moving on to semiconductors. Well, Supermicro, remember Supermicro? Everybody was talking about Supermicro, myself included. The deadline was reached and the stock was actually not going up, it went down. But on Monday, Supermicro went up 10.6%, Micron up 5.6%, at one point that was up 11%, Broadcom up 5%, 5.3%, Lam Research up 5.6%, KLA 4.8%. So as you can see, because also Applied Materials here up 4.6%. So the equipment makers have a good day here. Nvidia up 3.5%, Marvell up 3%. Marvell really got hit hard this year. Qualcomm up 1.7%, ASML 1.7%, ARM up 1%, and then TSM is down, Intel is down 1.4%, and AMD down 2.4%. You remember in my last video I talked about, what impacts could tariffs have, and one of the companies we talked about was AMD, and you can see that AMD's revenue from China has actually been increasing, so maybe that's why they got hit today more than the other names. Then if we look at just in general some other stocks that we follow here, Hims & Hers is actually back under $30. That was up 6.8% on Monday. Palantir up 5.17%. Shopify up 2.5%. Amazon up 2.5% as well. Meta 2.2%. Uber up 1.5%. Netflix was up. Google was up. The Trade Desk is back under $50. That's incredible. I mean, if you ever wanted to get exposure to the advertising industry, if you ever wanted to get Trade Desk in your portfolio and you always thought it was expensive, well, it's not cheap like a Google or something like that, but it's as cheap as you could get it at the moment. Tremendous company, tremendous management. You're going to ask me again, so why aren't you buying? Well, because I already have enough exposure to the advertising industry through Meta, through Alphabet, through Amazon as well. If I didn't have those names, I would for sure be buying the Trade Desk at these prices. Then we've got the group that is red. So that's Lemonade, Celsius, well, red, barely red. Walt Disney, Airbnb, Microsoft, Expedia is down 1.4%. Mercado Libre down 2.5%. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Tesla down 2.5%. Apple down 3.6%. Again, that China exposure, although we've seen that revenue from China in the last couple of years did drop by $10 billion, and revenue from Europe actually increased by $10 billion. And then you've got here Grab, also down 6.7%. And so did we reach a bottom? Did we not reach a bottom? What's going to happen? Well, to be honest, nobody knows, right? It's been very, very clear that nobody knows. But we did get an indication today or a hint of what might happen when positive headlines do come out, right? One rumor, one leak came out and the markets were soaring. So imagine when that rumor or that leak is actually true, right? Imagine the next couple of days we're going to have announcements from multiple countries with the United States, agreements have been reached. So every time you have that headline, you could see the markets turn green. Now, of course, if there is going to be more of a trade war with China specifically, that could hit the stock market. But if you can have agreements with 40, 50, 60, 70 countries in the next couple of weeks, I think that's going to be quite bullish for the stock market. Remember, we're not in an environment where sentiment can switch extremely quickly, right? We're not in an environment where inflation is going higher and higher super fast, where interest rates are going from close to 0 to 5% or 4% in record time. No, we're not in that environment. we're now in an environment where politicians, President of the United States, can decide actually that tomorrow maybe the markets will go up 3 to 4% if huge agreements are reached. That's the big difference between today and 2022 or even an 08 or any other periods, right? We can, people that keep saying, oh, Black Monday, right? Remember, this was supposed to be a Black Monday event. Guess what? Didn't happen, didn't even come close to a Black Monday event. Didn't even come close to the Great Depression. We're not close to it, not one bit. This is purely fear-mongering tactics, in my opinion, of course. All of this is my opinion. You know me, I'm fully invested, I'm very bullish. I can be very wrong in the short run, but 5, 10, 15 years from now, I can be very certain that the companies that I own, unless a meteor hits us, that the companies that I own are going to be quite successful and that my portfolio will be worth way more in the future than what it is today. So all in all, that's about it. Again, if you enjoy this type of videos, hit all the buttons. Would really appreciate that. Share your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.